Hey, I'm Dr. Asad. I am an associate professor and lead the Department of Community Medicine. Today, what we are going to discuss is hemorrhagic fevers. As the name indicates, the hemorrhagic fevers are the ones that results in the clinical manifestation. One of the clinical manifestation of them is the bleeding tendencies. There are different type of hemorrhagic fevers, the bacterial as well as the viral hemorrhagic fevers. But the viral hemorrhagic fevers, uh, they occupy a major chunk of the type of the hemorrhagic fevers. And the main two that we are going to discuss today are dengue fever and Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fevers, because these fevers are the ones which are endemic in Pakistan as well. So, an overview of viral hemorrhagic fevers is required to understand the other types, to understand what we are going to study or what we are going to discuss in our upcoming slides. On nearly all the viral hemorrhagic fevers, they all belong to they belong to several distinct families of viruses, and mainly the arthropod-borne viruses. They cause severe multi-system syndrome, that is they affect the different organs of the body, kidney, mainly the vital organs, the kidney, liver, spleen, brain, etc. And the main target organ of dengue virus is the microvasculature. And when this microvasculature is damaged, it becomes difficult for the body to regulate itself, and the symptoms are often related to the hemorrhage in severe cases, not in the mild cases, but in the severe cases, and it can be fatal. Dengue, by definition, is an acute febrile illness which is caused by infection with four interrelated RNA viruses of the genus Flaviviruses. By the way, the Flavi means yellow, and yellow fever virus is and yellow fever is named as according to the flavivirus because it in fact it causes the yellow fever. There are four distinct types of dengue viruses: dengue virus 1, 2, 3, and 4. An infection by them is causes headache, severe joint pain, and a rash. Uh, these four viruses, if a person gets infected, say with dengue virus 1, then he or she will be immune to reinfection by the same viruses. However, if that person gets infected with virus 2, then he or she is more likely to develop a severe dengue fever. A few of the signs of the dengue fever, as we have discussed, the headache, severe joint pain, and a rash, but also includes the retroorbital pain, and the pain in the bones is so much that it's also known as the bone fever. WHO has classified dengue virus in the two areas in the two time periods in 1997 and 2009. In 1997, the difference between them is that in the earlier version, the WHO has not given importance to the blood uh, tendency, the blood pathologies of the dengue virus. In 2009, they divided the dengue virus infection into the asymptomatic and the symptomatic. In case of asymptomatic, the people might not be even aware of whether they have the disease or not the disease. And the symptomatic, again, undifferentiated fever, dengue, severe dengue. Undifferentiated fever means the person has the fever, but he or she is unaware whether it's the malaria or the typhoid or what type of the fever is that. And the symptomatic is the dengue fever. Dengue fever is again the no warning signs and the warning signs, and the warning signs are the ones that we have discussed earlier. And the more severe dengue, and the severe dengue is again because of the result of severe plasma leakage, severe bleeding, and organs severely impaired. So this is the serious form, and it can be fatal. epidemiology of the dengue, or the distribution and the determinants of this disease, dengue, is that it is again an arthropod-borne viral disease. Arthropod are the arboviruses. The arboviruses are the arthropod-borne viruses, and there are certain viruses which are included in the list of arboviruses. This disease is endemic in more than 100 countries, and WHO estimates that nearly 40% of the world's population is at risk of getting dengue, or the epidemic of getting dengue. Pakistan first reported epidemic in 1994, so it's not a new disease for the Pakistan, but it has increased in cases of uh, number in increased cases is now being seen as comparing that to 94. A third of the world population could be affected. So 33% of the world population could be affected, and how it could be. It can be because of the population growth, leading to the urbanization and inadequate waste management. So the population growth is the phenomenon that is not coming slow, and the urbanization, the more people are there, they move to the cities, and then due to the lack of resources in the cities, the inadequate waste management, again the inadequate waste management provides a habitat for the increasing in population of uh, Aedes aegypti mosquito. Lack of awareness, people are unaware of the harmfulness of dengue fever. They are unaware of how they can protect themselves from dengue fever. Shortage of water. So, how can the shortage of water results in dengue, or increase in the population, or increase in the number of Aedes aegypti mosquito, the vector that's causing the disease? So, normally, what happens in the developing countries, the people don't have uh, the regular water supply or the piped water supply, and even in those areas where the piped water supply is present, it doesn't come throughout the day. It comes in intermittent, so the water supply is intermittent. People are afraid that whether people you are really afraid that whether they will get the water or not, so they try to store water, and they try to store water in the different types of containers, in drums, in tubs, in similar vessels, in similar blood vessels, in similar utensils. So they provide a habitat, they provide a place for, and these containers, these things provide a place for the mosquitoes to breed. Increased distribution and densities of vectors and viruses. Again, it's because of the intermingling of the population with the vector, which results in the increase in the population and the traveling of the people from one place to another. Lack of surveillance. Surveillance by I can define it in a very in three words, as is information for action, and it's two types: passive surveillance and the active surveillance. Passive surveillance is when the healthcare professionals in the country give information to the Central Health Secretariat. And active surveillance is when the Central Health Secretariat gets information and demands information from the healthcare providers. It is the simplest way in which I can describe the surveillance, or the types of surveillance. Then the evolution of virulent genotypes. Virulent means the virus or the microorganism that can cause disease. So there are different types of genotypes are emerging, and again, this can result in uh, uh, affecting the population. So if you talk of the dengue transmission, we first need to know what are the sources of dengue virus. The sources of dengue virus are the saliva of infected Aedes species mosquito, and blood or organs from an acutely infected person. So these two are the basic sources of dengue virus. And then what are the different ways in which the virus is transmitted? It is transmitted, of course, by the mosquito bite. And what are the other measures? Other are perinatal transmission. The perinatal transmission can be from mother, or the vertical transmission is from mother to child. And mother to child, it can happen in utero, and also during the birth or during the parturition. Blood transfusion is another very important route of viral transmission. And then the organ transplantation. If the organs are taken during the viremia, when the virus is in the blood and it has seized the organs, then it's very difficult to not have the dengue fever. And the needle stick injury or the laboratory accident. This is very important from the point of view of the healthcare professionals. There are various studies which have shown that the needle stick injuries are very, very common in different hospitals, including very well-known tertiary care hospitals. And the reason is there is lack of training. People don't know, the healthcare professionals, they don't know how to, especially they don't know how to recap the needle, so they get infected. And the another thing is that they even don't know that when they get infected with the needle stick injury, where or the sharps, so where to go, whether they had any infection control unit in their institute or not, or if they don't have the infection control unit, then what to do once they get needle stick injuries. So again, a few things about dengue transmissions. The vector, you see, the transmission, for the transmission, the vector is very important, other than the agent and the host and the other variables. So the important thing of the Aedes is that its eggs are capable of withstanding desiccation or uh, drying, or they have more thermal tolerance. That is, they are not easily uh, get destroyed by the heat. So what they do, they can survive in the areas which have very little water. So they're quite uh, sharp in the sense that they can make their way to the larval stage. Then increased larval population during the rainy season. The larval population increases during the rainy seasons because the rainy season provides a lot of habitat, a lot of places for the mosquito to lay eggs and for the larva to hatch from those eggs. So there's increased larval population during rainy seasons, and the rainy seasons are getting erratic due to the climate change that we are having in different countries, including the Pakistan. We are having rains when there was they're having rains out of seasons. So this is again causing different types of diseases, including dengue. So Aedes aegypti, the particular features, you must know our enemy, of course. So if you want to defeat them, so the bites during the day, it bites during the day, especially the dusks and the dawn. Thrives in urban settings. We have discussed about it. Breeds in clean and polluted water. So the people need to know. It's the health education that we need to give them, that it's the dengue viral mosquito. It thrives, it breeds in clean water as well. So they need to pay attention to the clean water vessels as well. And may be found amongst hanging clothes and cannot be controlled by mechanisms used for control of malaria carrying mosquitoes. Of course, because of the features that we have discussed, its biting habits, its where it lives, where it breeds, it's very difficult for control. Um, Now, what are the different factors of risks of dengue? The dengue has individual risk factors, epidemiological risk factors, and the viral factors. When we talk of individual risk factors, these are the age, sex, nutritional status, secondary infection, host response. Age, there is no specific age range, but in certain studies, it has been found that the people having age more than 19 years, they are more likely to get dengue fever. They are more at risk of getting dengue fever. For SACs, there is no difference who gets more disease. Nutritional status, of course, if the person is more healthy, the person is more nutritionally sound, he or she is less likely to get the disease. Secondary infection, as we have discussed earlier, that if a person has got infection from one of the serotypes of dengue virus, if that person gets a secondary infection from another virus, so from the same virus, then he or she won't get the disease because the antibodies were there to protect him against that serotype. But if that person gets infected from if that person say gets infected from the say dengue viral serotype 2, then he or she is more likely to develop severe dengue. The host response again depends upon the immune status of the person, and the secondary infection does and the primary infection does provide immune uh, does provide immunity to that person. Epidemiological factors: number of susceptible, vector density, viral circulation. Vector density, we have discussed the increase in the vector population and what are the various factors: the urbanization, the increase in the population growth, the different types of uh, different types of habitats, and viral circulation. The viral circulation is the types of the virus that's circulating, the type, the dengue virus 1, 2, 3, or 4, which one is circulating. And the viral factors, the serotype. Again, the serotype dengue 1, 2, 3, 4, although is being studied, but not a single serotype has yet been identified that which one is more severe than the other one. Although different studies suggest different uh, theories. Strain virulence, again, similarly. Uh, Strain virulence means the ability of a microorganisms to cause disease. So, and which type of a strain is more virulent is again understood. So, there's a question for you. You can apply more than you can apply tick to more than one. Which of the following are modes of transmission of dengue virus? Mosquito bite, tiny respiratory droplets in cough, blood transfusion, needle stick injuries. Hope you will give the answer. So, moving on, these are the different preventive measures. You need to wear long sleeves and long pants, trousers, and make use of mosquito repellents. You need to have the tires clean, have the tires dry and not filled with the water, and the screens or the nets around the bed, as well as in the nets in your windows and the doors. And you can potentiate the effect by treating them with insecticides, and of course the fumigation of the streets of the houses to get rid of these uh, mosquitoes. So personal protection against mosquitoes is again similar to what we have discussed. So, the effective disease and vector surveillance for the prevention and control of dengue fever, it entails that not only the disease, but the vector surveillance should also be carried out. The disease surveillance will tell us about the cases of dengue fever in the different geographic areas, as well as what are their attributes like their age, their sex, their working habits, uh, their occupations. And the vector surveillance tells us about what the different types of dengue mosquitoes are there, or are there any changes in the vector. Another very uh, appreciable technique is the integrated vector control. The integrated vector control means it's a cost-effective strategy that entails the prevention of multiple vectors through the combination of multiple multiple processes, through the multiple sort of insecticides, through different types of the multiple means to achieve the similar end, that is the control of vectors, of different types of vectors, through community and intersectoral participation. And when we talk of intersectoral participation, it does not mean only the health sector, but it involves the agricultural sector, as well as the municipality sector, as well as the wildlife sector, as well as public health engineering sector, the municipality sector. All these are involved in intersectoral participation. Emergency preparedness and response to the outbreak. We must be emergency by the way, what do you mean by the emergency? Emergency is the situation which does not which in which the community's capacity to cope is retained. It's not something that's out of community control. And the response to the outbreak. These are specific areas. These are subjects themselves. But what is essential as that we need to be prepared before the event strikes, or before the epidemic or the outbreak takes place. And emergency preparedness has whole components, this whole list and the process of that. We will discuss it in future slides. The clinical diagnosis and prompt case management. Clinical diagnosis and prompt case management is very important, because until and unless you have diagnosed appropriately, you can't treat the case. You have to have a very precise clinical case definition of a dengue case. That okay, the person presenting with such and such signs and symptoms is a dengue case. This is an example which I am giving, and the case management. And until and unless you free the patient out of the viremia, that person still has the capacity to be a source of infection for the others. In continuation with the prevention of dengue fever, there is a vaccine, Dangvaxia, by the name of Dangvaxia, is licensed and is available in some countries for the prevention of dengue virus. But even the company, but it is not approved by the FDA in United States, and the country and the pharmaceutical company that approves it, that made it, they suggest that this should not be used in a person who never have dengue fever. That is, in order to use it, the person is it gives results. It gives better results in case where the person has already been affected by the dengue virus, than in the future cases can be prevented. Measures this prevention requires recognition as an important public health issue, by of course by the community. And what you have, and how can you make the community recognize this as a health issue? You need to sensitize that community. You need to educate them that this problem is important. This can affect your children, yourself, and by staying at when you get ill, then by staying at home you may lose your job, or there will be the days of absences, and the stuff like this. You have to motivate them. Inclusion in list of reportable diseases. Of course, if something gets listed, it becomes important to some extent. And government of Pakistan has listed this in the list of reportable diseases. Long-term political commitment and multi-sectoral involvement. Long-term political commitment, yeah, that's very important, because it's very difficult if the governments are changing very rapidly, because their programs then change at the same pace. For example, if there's one government that gets toppled by the other government, the program will change, and all the strategies and all the setups will change, and it will all go haywire. And the multi-sectoral involvement, we have talked about that. It's the agricultural sector, it's the industrial sector, it's the agricultural sector, it's municipal sector, it's the school sector, it's the business sector. They all need to work in unison in order to provide the effective prevention to the community. Development of national plans for action. Yes, we do have a national plan for action for the dengue, but we don't know about its implementation and the development of monitoring system. The monitoring system is a short-term system. Is the at the regular interval, the government examines or the government inspects at regular interval that how many cases are there and how the management is going on, case management is going on, and so on and so. When we talk of approaches to control, there are different approaches to control dengue vector, dengue mosquito. These are the environmental management. It basically looks at the environment in which the agent and host are living. Community participation is one of the most effective technique in which the whole community strives to work towards a specific goal. The outbreak identification and preparedness. I said earlier that we shouldn't wait for the outbreak to occur, but we have to prepare it in advance. And there are certain steps of outbreak identification and preparedness. Multi-sectoral involvement. Uh, I'm saying again and again that this means that involvement other than the health sector, the, with the health sector, but other sectors as well, the agricultural sector, the husbandry sector, the livestock sector, and the different types of sectors. Environmental management. So the environmental management basically, when I talk of environmental management, it's about the component of the environment that is water, which is very essential. The improved water supply, mosquitoes, proofing of tanks or reservoirs, draining of water supply installations, improved domestic storage, building exterior solid waste disposal. The point that I would like to drive is that there are different studies which shows that water, that controlling the water, which is where the mosquito and the larval birth takes place, they are this is the source reduction. That is, if we can reduce the source of mosquito population, then or the primary prevention or the source reduction, we also call it as source reduction, then we can hope to control the upsurge of or the epidemic, or not the epidemic but the spread of dengue virus to some extent. And the tire management are the other activities, the tire management, cavities, filling of fences, glass bottles and cans, biological, chemical control of water, biological control. There are different fishes like the goldfish, they eat up the lava, and the chemical control of water. The chemical control of water should only be used in case of emergencies, because there are two reasons for not using the chemical in a regular way. Because they are toxic on the first hand, and the second hand, that the mosquitoes develop resistance to them very quickly. They develop resistance to the chemicals. Then the integrated control along with the monitoring and safety precautions. Integrated control is the uh, cost effective technique in which we strive to control multiple vectors by combining the multiple strategies. Now, how can we ensure the community participation? First and the foremost, if the people are not interested in preventing themselves from certain disease or unhealthy habits, it becomes very difficult for us, the doctors or the healthcare providers, to provide them with the healthy advice. So, first of all, we have to raise the community awareness. The community, and how can we raise the community awareness? Of course, by sensitizing the population. And how we can sensitize the population? By giving them the health education, by giving them health education material, by having discussion with them, by involving the influential people of the community, like uh, Qari Saab from or Madana Saab from a mosque, the uh, headmaster of a school, college principal, uh, coach of a local sports team, and any such other persons, because the people respect these figures. People listens to what they said. So in that case, you can sensitize the community and raise their awareness. Then the effective programs through joint community efforts to set goals, objectives, and strategies. Then there must be, when the community is organized and a community has identified that these are our needs. This is what is required for, in this case, that we have to have prevention from the dengue. Then they would have joint efforts. They would set goals, the objectives, and the strategies to remain healthy. Or your actions. Cleanup campaigns, involvement of municipal sanitation. Again, they can't do it alone. They can't be done alone. Involvement of voluntary association and organization. Again, we have said that we need to involve them. School-based programs, they are very effective when children are involved. They are very enthusiastic and they go to the home and discuss it with their parents, sensitize. So, another very important factor is the involvement of the private sectors. The private sectors do want to contribute. They have what is known as the CSR, or the corporate social responsibility. They have a specific section for providing support to the societies. So the public-private partnership, that's the buzzword which is common these days, and the public-private sector is uh, very much effective in case of health, in case of health uh, of the nation and the health sector. Coordination with other community development programs. You see, the coordination, when the different community development programs combine with each other, they produce what is known as synergy. That is, their effect is much more than what is expected if they are working alone. So it's it's very much effective to have a coordination. Outbreak identification and preparedness. For outbreak identification and its preparedness, uh, we don't need to wait for the outbreak to occur. We have to start, we have to be prepared, and there are different steps we can go through. But in a nutshell, we can say that it helps in the prediction of the impending epidemics. We need to have active surveillance. We need to know what are the different type of epidemics that can occur. We need to have an active surveillance of cases, routine monitoring of cases as well. Emergency action committee. Of course, we need to have somebody respond to the situations uh, that are likely to be faced. Then there is the rapid action team. The committee and the team are the essential part of any type of outbreak preparedness. Then a strong reporting system must be very clear that who will be reporting to whom. Otherwise, there will be duplication of the work, duplication of the reporting system. Clinical laboratory support out and in patient services. Uh, clinical Until and unless you have the clinical support, you cannot identify whether the outbreak of dengue is there or not. It's only a hearsay. Surveillance plan. So the surveillance plan needs we need to develop a clinical case definition. Like, we have to have a very precise definition. For example, a young male, 30, uh, 22 years of age, with high grade fever and backache plus bleeding from the gums. It's an example. The absolute clinical case definition will be made by the medical officer or the medical personnel that are involved there. Identify all patients that meet case definition and treat accordingly. Map cases to identify areas of infection and target interventions. GIS, the Geographic Information System, is a very valuable tool to identify the epidemics or to identify the spread of the disease in any specific geographical area. So again, that's very important. So Thank you so much. This is about uh, dengue fever. As you know, that this session is in two parts. The first was about dengue fever that we have just completed, and the next one will be about the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, as these two are the most important one in Pakistan scenario. So, and if you have any question, my email is on the first slide. You are most likely to write to me. Thank you.